Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, once again, thank you very much for joining an ever-expanding juggernaut of industrial entertainment here on Industrial Talk. It is a platform that celebrates industry professionals all around the world. And I'm pointing at you if you are out on video, because you're bold, you're brave, you dare greatly, you innovate, you collaborate, you solve problems, and it never stops. You're making the world a better place, and I truly believe that in my heart of hearts. Now, in the hot seat, again, you know I just geek out on anything industrial, and I love where it's an exciting time to be in industry, and I'm going to continue to be the cheerleader behind all that. We have a wonderful conversation with a gentleman by the name of Ivar Jacobson. Now, he's got mad street cred when it comes to programming. He's been around. In fact, use cases right there came from Ivar. We're going to be talking about all the stuff that's taking place within his world on this Industrial Talk. Let's get cracking. Yeah, it's exciting. You ever have those conversations, which I have all the time, quite frankly, just FYI, that you're talking to individuals that truly are passionate about thinking differently, solving problems, and solving those problems in a way that they bring in everybody. They want to bring in more. They want to bring in more insights and more companies and individuals that bring fresh perspective to some of the challenges, and also solve those problems that we just, for whatever reason, take for granted. We become numb, right? We become numb to the pain that they create. Ivar, man, I'm telling you, this is a great conversation. It is a paper and pencil chat. By the way, I've got in front of me an email with a bunch of links. So when you hear Ivar, you just know that there are a ton of other additional information about what he and his team are providing. And they're all there. So go out to industrialtalk.com and be able to sort of grab yourself some more information about Ivar and all the things that are taking place within his world and as well as team's world. All right. I'm going to be at a number of locations, and I'm going to go out to Industrial Talk, and I'm going to publish it. And I think the thinking behind all of that is, one, I'm going to be broadcasting from events throughout the year, and I'm trying to gear up a couple of things. One, I want to be able to do more on-site conversations with the companies that are producing something, manufacturing something, using in real life the digital transformation solutions and everything else, and how to really be a better manufacturer or a producer of whatever product or solving problems. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to put out on Industrial Talk the places that I will be. And if you have any interest in me buzzing on by while I'm at that conference or whatever it might be, to have a face-to-face conversation, I highly recommend that you make it happen. I'm all for it. The other area that I'd like to be able to start expanding upon, and that is being able to inspire through your help, through your vision, the younger professionals, the younger leaders in the world of manufacturing, in the world of digital transformation, in the world of whatever is happening out there, robotics, digital twin, you name it, programming, all of the stuff that we as a society need, and we need to be able to inspire the future leaders to be able to be a part of this incredible time. I wish I was younger and being exposed to all of this wonderful and great solutions. So those are the two things. On-site, going to be broadcasting from locations. I'm going to be in Orlando, going to be in Virginia, as well as being able to have an opportunity to speak to the youth and future leaders and inspire them, because you guys, everybody, industry is inspiring, and we just gotta do it. All right, on to the conversation now. Again, paper and pencil, you can always come back. I'd love for you to subscribe to Industrial Talk. We're out on all the podcast platforms. Of course, I got a YouTube, I got all that stuff. Subscribe so you don't miss out, because what you don't want, this might be, you might have to sort of take a break and go and do whatever is necessary and come on back. Don't miss out on this conversation. Don't miss out and listen to it, and be able to reach out to Ivar and be able to connect with him. So here we go. Let's get going with this conversation with Ivar Jacobson. Ivar, welcome to Industrial Talk. Thank you very much. All the way from Switzerland?
Switzerland, yes. Top of the Alps. Yeah. Not quite on the very top, but very close to the top.
Listeners, we've had a number of conversations over Zoom, and every time I have a conversation with Ivar, it's always sunny, and I know it's nice and brisk outside. And is there snow? Is there snow out there, right?
Oh, sure.
Oh, sure.
You bet.
Oh, yeah. But it's all every time it's always sunny. You got a great.
Today too. Yes.
Yeah, it is. I'm all jealous.
We are so high up, so it's hard for the clouds to get up here.
Is that true? That's not true. Give it a.
Sometimes we have clouds.
Yeah, because you have snow.
Yeah.
All right, for the listeners out there, Ivar, just I want to make sure you listeners understand that Ivar is a legend. Let's just sort of lay it out there. If you use the term use case, you're listening to the individual that came up with that term. So just FYI, that's why he is a pioneer, a legend. So with that said, with that laying that foundation, Ivar, just give us a little background outside of all of the other stuff. Give us a background on who Ivar is, and then we're going to go into an interesting conversation.
Background. That was an interesting start. I love what I'm doing, and I should probably have finished working, retired. At least I could have retired 20 years ago, but it's never in my mind. And that was actually when just 20 years ago, I was rewarded something called Gustav Dalén Prize from Chalmers, the Institute of Technology. It's quite a prestigious university, even in the whole world. And that was for use cases. And to tell you the truth, I was totally flabbergasted, because the idea of use cases is that before you develop a product, find out how you're going to use it. That's as simple as that. And how that could lead to something called the Little Nobel Prize in Sweden is,
You see, what's interesting, and it's so funny. I remember many years ago, not, outside of the fact, what are you going to do if you retire? Just I've always had that conversation as well. It's like, well, what do I do? What, do I play golf, or what do I drive around and go to Walmart? What do I do? And it's like, nah, I can't retire. And you can't either, because you're obligated to everybody here to continue to be brilliant. How's that?
Yeah, that was a big.
But anyway, when I was
overwhelming, yeah.
Well, when I was a number of years ago, and somebody popped in the term use case, I didn't understand it, and then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, that's it. Well, of course, it makes sense.
Well,
kudos to you.
Use cases. When I introduced it, I did it in a technical context, and but it was, of course, the mindset was that this is the most natural thing in the world, and the technical implementation was quite advanced. I wrote a book about it, so it.
Well, of course you did. I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you write a book about it, right? But what interests me, and as I looked at the information that you provided, which was quite extensive, and I'm humbled by it, is that there's a couple of competing type of themes that I sort of gleaned from it. One, you started your career in the world of engineering, right? And there's a discipline there. There's a desire to follow things and get it done and map it. There's a discipline there, and then you quickly realize that there's this sort of programmers and all of this other stuff, which tends to be sort of pious, I don't know, just sort of this Wild West type of mindset. And yet, so there's this competing. Can you sort of take us through your thinking on this sort of engineering versus this approach when it comes to programmers and what companies are dealing with? That'd be great.
Yeah, as a fresh engineer, I still had a severe mind to work, continue research. I've been offered to get a doctor's degree at my institute. But I thought, now I've studied my whole life, I should at least know what an engineer does. So I selected the most boring work I could imagine, but engineering and successful. I went to Ericsson. They built a relay-based switches system. And there was absolutely no computing, and I actually didn't know much about computing. But I learned engineering, and I started to love it. I felt never back to research. But after a couple of years, I understood computers are coming, and I was offered to move to the computing department. Here, they immediately assigned me to be project manager for the most mission-critical product they had. And I knew nothing about programming and nothing about computing. That had not been on my resume. Yeah. But I probably was a good project manager. At least they liked me, but the people liked me, and I was pushing and leading the team to good results. It took me, well, of course, I was 28 years old, so when they offered it, I said, okay, of course. And but it took me 3 months to really get under the skin, because there were no books, nothing of real value at that time. So I had to read code and understand machine code. After these 3 months, I felt, but the way we are building a product will never, ever become a product that we can market around the world. It was the traditional way of building at that time, namely basically separated the software from the program from the code. And you build 2 different hierarchies. They were completely separate, but interrelated. Interactions were so immense between the program, because it could read anywhere. And to change was a hell. So, but I knew components from hardware. So I translated my thinking from hardware to how could we use that idea in software? Yeah, we could identify things, we call them actually blocks, with clear interfaces, and whatever was in the block could be data, could be code, could be actually hardware too, was hidden from outside. The only way to access it was by sending messages between things. It took 8 months, and as a project manager in daytime, I ran the project as people wanted it to be run. But I talked to my boss and said, this will never, ever become a product. And when the project manager says, this will never, ever become a product, what does he do? he went to his boss, and his boss said, "I have no clue. You have to talk to my boss because he has been in US and he has built a computer." So we talked to the person I've never seen, you hear about but never see. And he said, "Okay, do as you want." But, then I had to convince the people, and no one wanted to do it. They felt this is just bad.
Hold on. When you said no one wants to do it, like the programmers didn't want to do it, you're trying to create. You got these silos, right? It's like, here's this, engineering side. Here's this program side. You're trying to bring some sort of them together to create a deliverable, right? A product that's never really been there before, right?
No. So it was a very difficult situation. My boss, he collected all the managers, and we were 13 managers, and he presented the approach, and he asked, how many of you like this? What do you think about it? He said. And the most positive guy said, "I don't know." The other said, this will go very bad for Ericsson. But he implemented it, and we did it. I did the first 2 components ever in that company myself.
When you say components, what do you mean by that?
That is, you can say it basically. It's a piece of software, including code.
Right.
It's both code and nowadays data is in the code. But at that time, it was totally separate. We made records. We used assemblers. You can imagine there was no support whatsoever for interaction. And for every interaction point, we introduced the macro instruction. So you had to identify macros to offer to other components.
So let's fast forward a little bit. So you've experienced, you've been in the trenches. You're trying to figure out how to begin to bring these 2 very important components together to deliver a product that makes sense in light of, like, hey, we got to do it. But you fast forward, and I'm looking at some of the data here, and some large companies still have, like you said here, about 10,000 programmers, and they still sort of have no discipline, and they just keep on programming, and they just keep on. How do you begin to grab that tiger by the tail and be able to deliver something? I mean, the thing is you're saying, hey, estimated 80% of the program work is. It's just, help us understand where we are today and how do we improve this? I hear the problem, but how do we improve it?
I mean, the world has basically gone in cycles, and there has been periods when we believe software development is an engineering discipline, and there are periods when we think it's a craft. And 20 years ago, or even more, people, particularly when Agile came, and let me say it loud and clearly, Agile was a savior for software engineering, but it became too much of a craft. Software development is primarily done by craftspeople and not by engineers. But it's not a simple thing, because there is also quite some engineering in how we work today, but it's far too little. So it complicates even more, because basically in every role, not quite every, but many roles, we both have to work as a craftsperson and as an engineer. It would be easier if there were some roles that were totally just craft and others just engineering. But it's more a blended situation. So we need to find solutions that help us to basically reduce the need for craft and increase the ability to engineer things. Engineering means a faster, better, high, of course, higher quality. And there are estimates that 80% of the work we do when we deal with software is no brain work, meaning it's people follow patterns that they have learned and just do what they know how to do. They don't have to think much. Anyway, not create. They think, of course, but not create. Imagine we can get these 80% to be more engineering-like work. That would have enormous impact on the quality, on the speed, on the happiness, not the least for happiness of people who do the job.
To expand upon that, are you saying or advocating that there still is a necessity for craftspeople, whatever that definition is? That's sort of that thinker, that sort of free, we're going to just that craft individual to focus on that energy that exists in there on the 20%. And then eventually there has to be a way of taking that 20% and then begin to shift some of the results into that 80%, which then becomes just more engineering, more. Is that what you're saying? Yes,
it's very, very close. I think I think I mean the same thing. Yes.
Yeah, because I completely today, Ivar, there's a lot of conversation that is wrapped around AI, wrapped around what's taking place in the world of innovation, and in that world where much of the conversation around it is that I want to remove the mundane. I want to let something happen over here and then leave sort of that specialized area over here, the 20%, whatever. Do you find in the world of engineering, do you think that there's a place? I mean, I hate to say the mundane because it's important stuff, right?
Well, there is no doubt about that. We see a lot of how AI can be applied in, for instance, code generation. That is, to many people, something that they couldn't imagine, at least not yet. But my own journey, first AI was coined somewhere in the 1960s. First time I really saw the need for it is when I worked at Ericsson, and I wrote actually, you call it four green books, 100 pages each. And one of them was about applying AI in software development. It was far too early. But in 2000, I actually set up a company with my eldest daughter, who was a consultant and salesperson at Rational Software. And that company developed a product called Waypointer, which actually supported the Rational Unified Process and made it very agile. We didn't support the whole process, I'm happy to say, but the essential parts of it, use cases, architecture, design, and testing, and of course, path to code and implementation. The product was very successful in one way, namely of users. We had two big companies using it, Aetna in Connecticut, and in Sweden it was a bank. Both were very successful, but what happened? RAP fell like a stone. And there are good reasons for that. So don't misunderstand me. But also agile rose like mushroom or whatever you want to call it, from nothing to something huge.
Yeah, it exploded.
Yeah, and this was so anti-agile to have tools to help people think. So I shut down the company and bought it into my current company. So it has been there waiting for the time come back. No code will be. We developed our own rule engine. It was based on object-oriented expert systems. It's called intelligent agents, and it was very different from the old-fashioned huge expert systems. But it came at the wrong time, and now there is so much more technique, underlying technique. We don't need to develop our own rule engine. We don't need to develop a rule language, for instance. We don't need to do that. All that comes with the modern techniques in machine learning and so on that we have in modern agile, in modern AI. And so, of course, but it's important to understand there are dreams now. AI has always been overhyped. So there are dreams that in one magical way, we will use AI to develop complete products. Maybe for simple products, I don't know if they are so simple, but I like exactly what the CEO of Microsoft, I cannot remember the Indian's name, but do you know his name?
No, I don't, but I know who it is. I see his face.
Oh, me too. So he has said that we will use ChatGPT techniques or similar techniques in all our products at Microsoft. So he means that the products will be augmented with GPT-like techniques to give better experience from users. And he doesn't say the other thing. These products are not needed anymore because GPT technique will fix it all to us.
See, that's an exciting future. It's unique. Let me ask you this, and this is exciting because I hear what you're saying. I've been taking notes. We've been talking about code. We've got 10,000 programmers. We've got a lot of sort of moving parts around here. And when we start talking about codes, you popped up a number of methodologies. And let's say I'm an organization, right? And I've just got somebody doing this, somebody doing that, and it's all over the place. You have a solution or an approach to be able to sort of bring some discipline into that sort of Wild West component. And correct me if I'm wrong. I'm talking about Essence. Is that? Can you explain to the listeners a little bit about, what that means and where you're going with that? Because I think it's intriguing.
Yeah, let me start by saying what triggered the development of Essence, because that is also talking about the values we are trying to achieve. So basically, the world is full of ideas. They're full of practices. It's full of patterns. We talk about agile. The most important thing we want people to learn is the mindset, agile, the principles. And we also want them, once they are or work or agile, to be able to apply practices, techniques that are useful for them. And they are not the same for every team. not even for every team in the same company. Every team has something, should have a luxury of select their own way of working within some constraints. And now, what do we have? We have frameworks to offer, or we also have single great practices like Scrum, Kanban, user stories. Maybe I can put in use cases there, and many other small pieces of a puzzle. But when we have frameworks which are defined with what content we have, and the content is selected by someone who has probably done some good work, but then he has to feel it complete with work from others. And these frameworks definitely play a role before we have got our act together, because they help at least the troubled organization to get some structure. So, but there are many of them, and they have different terminology, different vocabulary. They talk about promote, and they structure the whole thing very differently. They look very differently. They are like isolated islands with no bridges between them. And from this world of these different frameworks, people have to choose, but they cannot choose freely. I like this thing in SAFe, but I prefer this thing in wherever less, or I like it. So they are not these things, call them practices. They are in method prisons. They are sitting in a prison, in the SAFe prison or in the dead prison, or
Right.
And not take them easily and say, this is my way of working. This is our way of working. So, I was once one of these gurus that it was rational unified process. And it took me a couple of years to get into this agile mindset. It was actually Dave Thomas who taught me. Dave Thomas, OTI, Dave Thomas, not pragmatics, Dave Thomas. I have seen the latter guy's work too. It's great. But anyway, it didn't take long time once I had a chance to sit down and talk to him. 2 hours and he turned me on. And so we have all these things. And then I understood my future mission is not to create yet another RAP or similar or complete frameworks where people which has sell as if it was here you can find anything. You can take it and you can scale down. No, scaling down doesn't work because what should I take away? Everything. So instead, we started to think there must be a common ground between all these frameworks.
Uh-huh.
And so we developed one. We had 6 people working for about half a year, and we think we found one. We tried it against the 50 different methods, and when we tried it, and we discovered now we had to do a better one. The interesting thing, it shrank. It became smaller, this common ground. We call it the kernel. And we also provided it with a little, very simple language. But there were some great innovations in that language, which I'm not going to into, but needed to be able to build it. Then the whole idea is that this kernel will work as a base to describe whatever thing you want to describe. So you can describe, for instance, we have done it with Scrum, and Jeff Sutherland says, essence is the key to success. This thing we call essence, by the way. And he says, essence is the key to success. 2 weeks ago, we announced we have done it with David Anderson on Kanban, and we have done it with Spotify. We have done it with many architectural practices, 8, I think, coming from SCI and other places. And we are now working with, I cannot mention until we have signed it, but we have 9 other methodologists essentializing their work.
Maybe I need to simplify this a little bit. I'm a company. And I say, hey, here's this here's this framework, this kernel, this essence that I'm really intrigued with. Take us through, how would I engage with you, the product, the solution, what is it, and then what is the objective for me on the other end? Let's say, I'm all thumbs up with Essence. Yes, I'm having the right conversations. Yes, I have my team wrapped around this. What am I hoping to achieve?
I'm hoping to achieve a way to have all the competence I have in the company and outside accessible to any team in the company. So, I mean, if you take a company like Ericsson, once upon a time, they had 25 different methods. And they couldn't, at that time, send one guy from one method to work with another team. I mean, this is crazy. So instead having this, an ecosystem where you can go and select the practices and compose them into a working method. And any changes that happen in this ecosystem will be accessible to you next day. And the people who build this ecosystem are not your fellows. Many of them are David Anderson, Jeff Sutherland, Ken Beck, the brilliant guys in the world. I have not Ken Beck on this yet, but I mentioned people like that.
Yeah.
And imagine it's not only them, because even if Jeff and Ken invented Scrum, there are many variations of Scrum. They can also be there in this framework, but they should be motivated in one way or the other. And then you need, of course, an AI system to select among all this, because it's too overwhelming at some point in time.
See, what you're giving me is you're giving me some structure. At least you're giving me something that is accessible. Me as a company, I'm going, okay, I got it. But not only that, you're giving me the best minds to continue to help me succeed in my efforts to develop what I need to develop. And it's right here. I don't have to scramble, there's that chaos that exists out there. You're able to give me, in this essence, the real nuggets of success for my program and my efforts with the latest thinking. Right? Am I looking at that right?
Exactly. And I was very criticized originally inside my own company, because why do you give this away? We have spent this number of millions on it. And why do you give it away? I gave it away to a community called CMATS, and they started all over. The community wanted to create a kernel for software engineering. And I didn't in any way enforce they used whatever we had done, but they liked it. And we have something much better. With this result, we could then go to OMG and get hundreds of people to review it and approve it. That was probably, if there was anything smart I did in this situation, this was smart to give it away and after having spent so much money on developing it. And at that time, we had no idea how we could ever make any money on this. But we felt this is needed. We cannot have it less.
See, and there's that whole argument about open source and people contributing and being able to create the collective knowledge and put it on. I mean, there's a power behind that, and I can definitely appreciate your company's generosity in pulling this together, because it's truly needed. All right, one last question before we wrap it up there, Ivar. Where do you see this going? It's still, you know, you got another 30 years of your profession.
Yeah, I think that's the least.
See, where do you see it going? Where do you see this sort of?
Well, I think we are. Let me say that we are working on many different directions. We are. First of all, we want all the people who have good ideas to feel a place where they can put these good ideas and be sure be rewarded. So, for instance, we don't essentialize anything without having the originator to basically own the result. And if there is any money made ever, then we will share with them. So, and they will at least get a lot of recognition from being part of this framework. It's not like other methodologies that have to do it. I'm not criticizing my colleague friends for having to do what we do, namely, they have to take and modify. For instance, if you take SCUM into SAFE, they have to modify it because SCUM, as it is designed originally, doesn't really fit into SAFE. So that is natural. So doing what we are doing is much more fundamental. But so we have to work to get many people to love it. The other thing we want to do is the academics absolutely need to embrace it. So we have a forum, Essence Education Forum, with 60 plus professors that are working on new education programs based on Essence. And there is a lot of activity go around the world in the academic world on adopting Essence as instead of teaching whatever they do in software engineering, usually some example method or something like that, teaching a common ground that the students can bring with them the rest of their life. And of course, the eventually target is the industry. And we have been working with really big companies to create their own way of working. And many of them have used SAFE and find after a while SAFE was good for us, but now we need to have control of our own method. That is the big companies, and of course they are very good for us so we can grow our business and develop more things. Now we are working on something very small. Namely, we are working on small packages where we, for instance, can have a SCUM team to become a better SCUM team. Easier learn the core ideas of Essence, of SCUM, and Essence is hidden for them. They don't really see it. It's like the motor in a car. You know, you don't need to drive a car to know how the motor functions. You know what you need to do to get it to work, and so on. That's our metaphor. So we will soon, in beta, have SCUM, a package for SCUM teams, and we are working on after that to do many small products like that.
So I have a good idea, and I want access to the good idea. How do I begin this journey with you and your team? Or I want to be engaged. What is the best way for me to make that happen?
Yeah, you can go to our website, essence / ivarjacobson.com. I think that's the name of it. And you will start your journey there. You're welcome to contact me, and I will make sure you will be taken care of. And there is a LinkedIn article that I've written titled "Learn More About Essence," which is it is hard to keep updated because a lot of things happening, but it's okay start. And there is a meetup group called Essence for Agility. And there we have more than 4,000 members that join us. Last week we had a meeting with Kanban, 2 weeks ago, I think, Kanban and David Anderson, and they expressed their happiness with using Essence. And by the way, we use gamification.
Yes.
In play. So learning and adopting and working, it's not only learning. We also have a path to move from learning to doing that simplifies it for the team once we had learned something to get started. So it's and that is really very successful. The gaming is particularly interesting in our case because since our games rely on a language with deep semantics, it's not only intuition that basically all other games are based on, with some exception. But most games you know of are just relying on intuition. Whereas our game is relying on a language with an underlying deep semantics, which you don't really need to know, but it works. You can play hundreds of games, and they all hang together if they're related.
Yeah, I all I know is I enjoyed this conversation. All I know is that if I was in the market and I wanted to be successful at my profession, you would be the first place I'd go to make that happen. I would. I mean, this is important because I can sense the passion in your voice, in what I see, and how you want to just make sure that people succeed. You're solving a problem out there. You were absolutely wonderful, Ivar. I appreciate that. All right, listeners. I'm gonna one last thing.
Just the last word.
Yeah.
Big thank you to OMG, who has made this a standard and who has reviewed it by hundreds of people and challenged it and got it to the place where it is and is still managing its evolution. There are changes to be done. Originally, Essence was designed for software engineering, but now it has been used for system engineering and basically for any kind of engineering. But now it will work next release of Essence. Hopefully, will include direct support for all these things.
Probably those are new use cases, right?
Yeah, it is. And I also want to say that Essence is not only for describing practices, it really helps in describing the mindset. So change the mindset of the developers. So it's not only about these technical details, it's about how you think to really become agile or be agile.
I see. Yeah, I'm giddy. Giddy. I love it. I love what you're talking about. This is an incredible solution, service, product, whatever you want to call it. It's spectacular. And I'm going to, listeners, I'm going to hound him down to make sure that we have all of the links that are necessary for you to connect with Ivar and his team and be a part of that. Of course, omg.org will be out there, the whole thing. So fear not. You're going to have every bit of information to be able to reach out to this gent and others so that you be successful. All right, listeners, we're going to wrap it up on the other side. Stay tuned. We will be right back.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
How about that for a conversation? That is definitely one for the books. Ivar Jacobson. Go out to Industrial Talk. Reach out. Find his stat card out on LinkedIn. Connect with him. I'm just telling you, you need to. If you're in the world of industry, if you're in the world of truly solving problems, you need to connect and you need to collaborate with people like Ivar, as well as all of the other links that I have out there with all this great content that has been produced and more information, because we're all about educating. You got to educate, especially now. This world is fast when it comes to technology. Educate, and you have to collaborate. And whether we like it or not, we've got to innovate. And to do that, we've got to definitely educate and collaborate to achieve that. I always feel like I don't have enough time in the day, right? I see the sense of urgency that happen in industry, and I just get all excited as well as tense, because I just think that there's so much that can be done. So many stories that can be amplified. So many solutions that can solve great problems. And we just need to get that message out there. We just got to do it. We got to inspire the future and make that happen. So if you're interested in that, go out to industrialtalk.com, reach out. I would love a conversation with you and see how we can collaborate to get that message out. So that's industrialtalk.com. All right. As always, be bold, be brave, dare greatly, hang out. Definitely hang out with Ivar, and you're going to change the world. We're going to have another great conversation. Coming at you in stereo. So stay tuned. We will be right back.